The day Abigail Mercer learned she was being married off, nobody bothered asking what she wanted. By then, nobody ever did. The church meeting had already ended by the time she arrived. The men were standing near the front steps beneath a gray October sky, speaking in low voices while cold winds swept through the streets of Willow Creek. Abigail immediately recognized the expressions on their faces. Pity. The kind that always came before bad news. At 34 years old, she had become accustomed to it. After all, she wasn't young, she wasn't beautiful, and now she wasn't even married. Her husband, Henry Mercer, had died from pneumonia 6 weeks earlier, leaving behind debts, unpaid medical bills, and a widow nobody seemed quite sure what to do with. The town had spent years tolerating Abigail because Henry had been well liked. Without him, things were changing. Fast. Pastor Whitaker removed his hat as she approached. Miss Mercer, widow. Not Miss, not Mrs., just a woman standing somewhere awkwardly between both. Abigail folded her hands. You wish to see me? The older man nodded. Perhaps we should talk inside. Her stomach tightened immediately. Nothing good ever began with those words. Inside the church, several town leaders sat waiting. The mayor, the general store owner, 2 ranchers, Pastor Whitaker. Abigail remained standing. Nobody offered her a chair, nobody noticed, or perhaps they did. The mayor cleared his throat. As you know, winter is approaching. Abigail nearly laughed. That was how this conversation was beginning? Yes. And your financial situation is difficult. There it was. The real reason. Abigail stared at him quietly. My husband's debts are being managed. The store owner shifted uncomfortably. Not entirely. The words struck harder than expected, because she knew they were true. Henry's illness had consumed nearly everything. Savings, livestock, equipment, even the small amount of land they'd owned. What remained barely covered food. Forget winter. Forget survival. Forget next year. The mayor leaned forward. We've discussed possible solutions. Solutions. Another dangerous word. Abigail's fingers tightened. What kind of solutions? Nobody answered immediately. Finally, Pastor Whitaker spoke. There is a rancher. The room suddenly felt colder. A rancher? The pastor nodded. His name is Jacob Reed. The name sounded vaguely familiar. Then recognition came. Jacob Reed. Everyone in Wyoming Territory knew the story. 5 years earlier, Jacob Reed had been one of the wealthiest ranchers in the region. Then came the accident. A runaway stallion, a shattered leg, months of recovery, permanent damage. The injury never healed correctly. Rumors claimed he could barely ride anymore. Some even claimed he could barely walk. Then tragedy struck again. His fiancée left him. Friends disappeared. Business partners abandoned him. Eventually, Jacob withdrew almost entirely from society. His ranch sat nearly 20 miles outside town. Most people rarely saw him anymore. Abigail frowned. What does he have to do with me? The mayor exchanged glances with the others, then answered. He requires a wife. Silence. Absolute silence. For several seconds, Abigail simply stared, certain she had misunderstood. Then reality settled. Slowly, heavily. You are proposing marriage. Practical marriage. The distinction somehow made it worse. Abigail's voice became very quiet. And if I refuse? Nobody answered. Because they didn't need to. The answer hung openly in the room. No job. No money. No property. No protection. Winter. Starvation. Homelessness. She already understood. The pastor finally sighed. Jacob is a decent man. Abigail looked at him. Does Jacob know about this? The room became uncomfortable again. That alone answered the question. He has agreed. Agreed. Not requested, not desired, agreed. Like accepting livestock or supplies or a necessary expense. Something sharp twisted inside her chest. Not anger, not exactly. Humiliation. Deep. Familiar. Painfully familiar. All her life people had discussed her usefulness. Never her happiness, never her dreams, only usefulness. And now even marriage had become another transaction. The mayor softened his voice. You would have security. Security. Such a small word, such a cruel one. Abigail lowered her eyes. Because everyone present already knew something she had spent years trying to ignore. Without Henry, there was nowhere else to go. 3 days later, she left Willow Creek. The entire town seemed strangely relieved, as though a difficult problem had finally been solved. A wagon carried her few remaining possessions westward across endless Wyoming grasslands. A trunk, 2 dresses, a sewing kit, several books, and a small wooden box containing Henry's letters. Everything else had already been sold. The journey lasted nearly 8 hours. The farther west they traveled, the emptier the world became. Rolling plains stretched endlessly toward distant mountains. Cold autumn winds rattled the wagon constantly. Dark clouds gathered overhead. Abigail spent most of the trip staring across the landscape, trying not to think, trying not to imagine the man waiting at the end of the road, trying not to wonder whether he resented this arrangement as much as she did. Near sunset, the driver pointed ahead. There. Abigail looked up. A ranch appeared in the distance, large, much larger than expected. Weathered barns, long fences, corrals, pastures. A sprawling ranch house sitting beneath a ridge of hills. Yet despite its size, something felt wrong. The place looked neglected. Not abandoned, just tired, like someone had stopped caring. The wagon rolled through the front gate. Workers glanced up briefly before returning to their tasks. Nobody smiled. Nobody waved. Even the horses seemed strangely subdued. Then Abigail saw him, standing on the porch, watching. Jacob Reed, her new husband. He was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, perhaps 42 or 43 years old. A heavy cane rested beside him. His left leg remained stiff. The injury was obvious, real, not exaggerated. Years of pain showed in the way he carried himself. But what struck Abigail most wasn't the limp. It was his eyes. Exhausted eyes. The eyes of a man who had spent years losing things. The wagon stopped. Silence followed. Jacob didn't move immediately. Neither did Abigail. For several awkward seconds they simply stared at one another. 2 strangers. 2 damaged lives. 2 people forced together by circumstances neither had chosen. Finally, Jacob stepped forward. Slowly, carefully. His limp became more noticeable with each step. When he reached the wagon, he removed his hat. "Mrs. Mercer." His voice was deep and rough. Abigail nodded politely. "Mr. Reed." Another silence. Neither seemed to know what came next. Eventually, Jacob cleared his throat. "The trip was long." "Yes. You must be tired." "A little?" More silence. Abigail almost felt sorry for him. Almost, because he looked just as trapped as she felt. Jacob finally glanced toward her trunk. "I'll carry that." "You don't have to." "I know." Without another word, he lifted the trunk. The movement clearly caused pain. Abigail noticed immediately. Jacob noticed her noticing. Neither mentioned it. Together they walked toward the ranch house. The front porch creaked beneath their feet. Inside, the home felt surprisingly empty. Large rooms, simple furniture, few decorations, very little warmth. The place felt like a building rather than a home. Jacob set down her trunk. "The bedroom is upstairs." Abigail blinked. "The bedroom? You'll have it." She looked confused. "And you?" "The couch." For the first time since arriving, genuine surprise crossed her face. Jacob shrugged. "This arrangement wasn't your idea." Neither was it his, but again, neither said it aloud. Dinner that evening was painfully awkward. The cook had prepared stew. Neither ate much. Conversation came in short, uncomfortable pieces. Questions, answers, silence. Eventually, Abigail learned more about him. His injury, the ranch, the workers. Nothing personal, nothing emotional, only facts, safe subjects, the kind strangers discussed. After dinner, Jacob disappeared into his office. Abigail wandered the house alone, and that was when she noticed it. The bookshelves, ledgers, folders, stacks of paperwork piled almost everywhere. Not organized paperwork, neglected paperwork. Months, perhaps years. Something wasn't being managed properly. Interesting. Very interesting. Later that night, she unpacked her belongings upstairs. The bedroom overlooked the ranch. Moonlight stretched across distant fields. Workers were finishing evening chores. The ranch felt strangely sad after dark. Lonely, like the man who owned it. Abigail sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time all day, silence surrounded her. Real silence. No town leaders, no church elders, no pity, no decisions being made on her behalf. Just her, and the unknown future waiting beyond the window. Downstairs, she could hear Jacob moving slowly through the house, a cane tapping occasionally against wooden floors. Steady, measured, lonely. Abigail looked toward the horizon, then toward the office downstairs, toward the mountains, toward the strange, neglected ranch she now called home, and for reasons she couldn't explain, a feeling settled deep inside her. Something wasn't right here. Not the ranch, not the finances, not the isolation, something larger, something hidden, and before winter ended, she intended to find out exactly what it was. For the first 2 weeks, Abigail told herself she was imagining things. The strange feeling, the tension among the workers, the way conversations stopped whenever certain subjects appeared, the way Jacob Reed seemed determined to avoid discussing anything beyond the daily operation of the ranch. Perhaps it was simply adjustment. After all, she was living among strangers, married to a man she had known less than a month, trying to build a life neither of them had chosen. That would make anyone uncomfortable, but the feeling refused to disappear. In fact, it grew stronger every day, every observation, every unanswered question, until eventually Abigail stopped ignoring it and started paying attention. The first clue appeared inside Jacob's office. It happened on a cold November morning while snow drifted across the ranch in thin white sheets. Jacob had ridden into town with 2 workers. Abigail remained behind organizing household supplies. After finishing the kitchen inventory, she wandered into the office, intending to dust. Nothing more, at least initially. The room looked exactly as it always did. Ledgers, invoices, receipts, folders, stacks of paperwork piled everywhere, months of neglect, possibly years. Abigail stared at the chaos, then sighed. She couldn't help herself. By nature, she organized things. Within an hour, she had created neat stacks. Within 2 hours, she had separated financial records. Within 3 hours, she noticed something strange. The numbers didn't make sense. At first, she assumed she had misread something. Then she checked again. And again. Still wrong. She pulled another ledger. Then another. Then another. The confusion slowly became concern, because according to these records, the ranch should have been doing much better. Much better. Jacob owned thousands of acres, large cattle herds, water rights, grazing land, several profitable contracts. Yet the book suggested constant financial problems. Heavy losses, declining profits, missing income. Abigail frowned. Something wasn't adding up. Literally. She spent the rest of the afternoon comparing records. The deeper she looked, the stranger everything became. Payments appeared multiple times. Expenses seemed inflated. Equipment purchases existed without matching deliveries. Entire cattle shipments appeared incomplete. Some records seemed deliberately confusing. Others appeared almost intentionally vague. Abigail sat back slowly, her heartbeat increasing. This wasn't sloppy bookkeeping. This looked like manipulation. That evening, Jacob returned from town after sunset. Snow covered his coat. Exhaustion covered everything else. Abigail waited until dinner ended, then finally spoke. "Can I ask you something?" Jacob glanced up. "Of course." She hesitated briefly, then decided honesty was best. "I spent some time organizing your office." Jacob froze. Only slightly, but she noticed. "Oh? The ranch books don't make sense." The room became quiet. Very quiet. Jacob lowered his spoon. "What do you mean?" Abigail chose her words carefully. "I mean the numbers don't match." His expression hardened immediately. "Accounting isn't simple." "I know. You've only looked at them one day." Abigail remained calm. "Which is why I'm asking questions." Jacob stared into his bowl. A muscle tightened in his jaw. For several seconds neither spoke. Then he said quietly, "Silas handles most of that." Abigail looked up. "Silas?" "My cousin." The name sounded familiar. Then she remembered. The man several workers had mentioned. Silas Reed, Jacob's cousin, business manager, closest advisor. Apparently one of the few people Jacob still trusted. Abigail nodded slowly. "And you're confident everything is correct?" Jacob's answer came immediately. "Yes." Too quickly. Far too quickly. Abigail noticed, and so did he. The conversation ended soon afterward. But something important had changed. For the first time, she had discovered a subject Jacob didn't want discussed. 2 days later, she met Silas Reed, and immediately understood why everyone trusted him. He was charming. Dangerously charming. Tall, well-dressed, confident. The kind of man who entered a room and somehow made everyone feel comfortable, even when they shouldn't. Silas arrived just before noon. His expensive coat looked completely out of place among the ranch workers, yet somehow, he wore it naturally, as though he belonged everywhere. Jacob greeted him warmly. Warmer than Abigail had ever seen him greet anyone. That alone told her plenty. The two men clearly shared years of history, years of trust, years of dependence. Silas noticed Abigail immediately. A broad smile appeared. "So this is the famous wife." Abigail forced a polite smile. "Famous seems unlikely." Silas laughed. A practiced laugh. Easy, smooth, calculated. You'd be surprised. Something about him unsettled her instantly. Not anything obvious, just instinct. The same instinct that had warned her about dishonest merchants back in Willow Creek. The same instinct that had saved her from bad decisions more than once. Silas seemed pleasant. But underneath the charm, something felt wrong. Over lunch, Abigail mostly listened. Jacob and Silas discussed ranch business, cattle prices, feed contracts, winter preparation, transportation costs, investments. At first the conversation seemed normal. Then Abigail noticed a pattern. Every important decision somehow involved Silas. Every financial discussion ended with Silas making recommendations. Every major expense had been approved through Silas. Every future plan depended on Silas. Jacob owned the ranch, but Silas controlled the information. Interesting. Very interesting. After lunch, Jacob left to inspect the south pasture. Silas remained behind. The moment they were alone, his smile changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. Less friendly. More observant. "You've been looking through the books." The statement caught Abigail off guard. She hid it well. "A little." Silas nodded. "Jacob mentioned it." "Of course he had." Silas folded his hands. "The ranch has complicated finances." "I'm sure. Many people misunderstand them." Abigail met his gaze. Neither looked away. For several seconds an invisible battle took place. Silent, polite, dangerous. Finally Silas smiled again. "You seem intelligent." "Thank you. It would be unfortunate if misunderstandings caused unnecessary stress." There it was. A warning disguised his kindness. Subtle, elegant, but unmistakable. Abigail smiled politely. "I'll keep that in mind." Silas's eyes narrowed slightly. Only slightly. Then the charming expression returned. But by then she knew. The feeling she'd been carrying since arriving wasn't imagination. Not at all. Something was wrong. And Silas knew it. The first real proof arrived a week later. By accident. A young ranch hand named Eli Turner brought several delivery receipts into the house. Abigail offered to organize them. Eli happily accepted. "Anything that keeps me away from paperwork." She laughed softly, then began sorting. Halfway through the stack something caught her attention. A cattle shipment. 300 head sold 6 months earlier. She remembered seeing the entry in the ranch ledger. Only according to the ledger, the ranch had received payment for 200, not 300. Abigail frowned. She checked again. Then again. Same result. 300 sold. Payment recorded for 200, 100 cattle missing. A very expensive mistake. Unless it wasn't a mistake. Her pulse quickened. Slowly she gathered additional records. More receipts. More invoices. More contracts. The pattern emerged rapidly. Not one mistake. Many, repeated, systematic, intentional. Money wasn't disappearing accidentally. Someone was taking it. For years. That night she showed Jacob everything. The evidence covered half the dining table: receipts, ledgers, sales records, invoices. Jacob stared at them in silence, the color slowly draining from his face. "This can't be right." Abigail spoke gently. "I checked 3 times. "No." Jacob shook his head. "Silas wouldn't do this." The words sounded less certain than before, much less certain. Abigail said nothing, because she understood. The evidence wasn't merely accusing a business manager, it was accusing family. Trust. Years of friendship, years of loyalty. The hardest lies to uncover were always the ones told by people we loved. Jacob sat heavily in his chair, his injured leg trembling slightly. For a long moment he stared at the documents, then finally whispered, "If this is true..." He never finished. He didn't need to. Abigail already understood. If this was true, everything was about to change, and somewhere beyond the ranch house, beyond the snow-covered fields, beyond the quiet valley, someone else was beginning to realize they had started asking dangerous questions. For 3 days after discovering the missing money, neither Abigail nor Jacob mentioned Silas's name. Not directly. The evidence remained hidden inside a locked desk drawer. The ledgers stayed exactly where Abigail had left them, and yet the truth sat between them during every meal, every conversation, every silence, because once doubt entered a person's mind, it never truly left, especially when that doubt involved someone they loved. Jacob spent those 3 days working longer hours than usual, leaving before sunrise, returning after dark, avoiding the house whenever possible, avoiding Abigail, avoiding the evidence, avoiding reality. But reality had a habit of waiting, patiently, until a person finally looked at it. The confrontation happened on the 4th evening. Snow hammered against the ranch house windows while wind howled across the valley. Abigail found Jacob sitting alone in his office. The ledgers lay open before him. His expression told her everything. He had finally checked, really checked, and he had found exactly what she found. She entered. For a long moment, he simply stared at the pages, then quietly said, "You were right." Abigail remained silent. Jacob laughed bitterly. "Not because anything was funny, because it wasn't. I checked every contract from the past 4 years." His voice sounded hollow. "Tens of thousands of dollars." The words hung heavily in the room. Tens of thousands, enough money to save the ranch, enough money to explain every financial problem, enough money to destroy a family. Jacob closed the ledger. He took everything. Abigail carefully sat across from him. "Not everything." Jacob finally looked up. His eyes were filled with something worse than anger. Betrayal. "He was my brother after Aaron died." Aaron. The younger brother Jacob had lost years earlier. The brother Abigail had only heard mentioned once. "After the accident." Jacob swallowed hard. "After Margaret left." He looked away. Silas was the only one who stayed. The realization seemed to physically hurt him, because the deepest betrayals rarely came from enemies. They came from people we trusted, people we loved, people we never imagined would hurt us. Abigail reached across the desk and placed a hand over his. Jacob looked down at it. Neither spoke, but for the first time since arriving at the ranch, he didn't pull away. The next morning they began investigating together. Carefully, quietly, because neither knew how dangerous the situation might become. If Silas had stolen money, he would protect himself. If he would steal from family, what else would he do? That question worried Abigail more than anything. By the end of the week they had their answer. A disturbing answer. It began with cattle records. Jacob personally counted every animal on the ranch. Twice. The numbers didn't match the books, not even close. Nearly 170 cattle had disappeared over the previous 4 years. Sold, moved, or stolen. Yet there was almost no official record explaining where they went. Abigail began tracing sales documents. Names appeared repeatedly. Companies, buyers, contracts, and somehow every trail eventually led back to the same person. Nathan Crowley, the largest businessman in Red Creek Valley. A man who owned shipping contracts, supply warehouses, feed companies, and transportation routes throughout the territory. Abigail frowned. Who exactly is Nathan Crowley? Jacob's expression darkened immediately. trouble. That answer wasn't enough, so she asked Martha Reeves. Martha Reeves owned the general store in town, a sharp-eyed woman who seemed to know everyone's secrets. When Abigail visited one afternoon, Martha listened quietly while pretending to organize shelves. Then she lowered her voice. "You're asking dangerous questions." Abigail didn't deny it. Martha sighed. "Figures. What do you know about Crowley?" The older woman glanced toward the window, making certain nobody was listening. Then she leaned closer. 15 years ago, there were more than 30 independent ranches in this valley. Abigail nodded. She had seen some of the abandoned properties. Now? 12. The number startled her. "What happened?" Martha's expression hardened. "Depends who you ask." The answer sent chills down Abigail's spine. "Meaning?" "Some lost money. Others? Fires." Martha paused. "Accidents." Another pause. "Disappearances." Abigail felt cold despite the stove burning nearby. "You think Crowley is responsible?" Martha looked directly into her eyes. "I think men like Crowley never get rich, honestly." The ride home felt longer than usual. By the time Abigail reached the ranch, darkness had already fallen. Snow drifted across the fields. The house glowed warmly in the distance. Normally the sight comforted her. Tonight it didn't, because something had changed. The problem was bigger than Silas. Much bigger. Silas wasn't acting alone. Someone else stood behind everything. Someone powerful, someone wealthy, someone dangerous. And for reasons she couldn't explain, Abigail felt certain Crowley was connected to all of it. 2 nights later, somebody broke into the ranch house. The attack happened shortly after midnight. Abigail woke suddenly. At first she didn't know why. Then she heard it, a sound downstairs, a floorboard creaking. Soft, careful, intentional. Not Jacob, not a ranch hand, an intruder. Her heart immediately began pounding. Slowly she slipped from bed. The house remained dark, silent. Then another sound. The office. Someone was inside the office. Abigail moved toward the hallway. At the same moment, another door opened. Jacob, holding a lantern. Their eyes met. Neither needed words. Both had heard it. A loud crash suddenly echoed downstairs. The intruder was no longer being careful. Jacob grabbed the rifle mounted beside the staircase. Pain flashed across his face as he hurried downward. Abigail followed. The office door stood open. Papers covered the floor. Desk drawers pulled out. Documents scattered everywhere. Someone was searching for something. Or had been, because the office was now empty. The back door swung slightly in the cold wind. The intruder had escaped. Jacob cursed under his breath, then noticed something. The locked drawer, the one containing their evidence. It had been forced open. Empty. Abigail's stomach dropped. The documents were gone, all of them. The ledgers, the receipts, the proof, everything. For several seconds neither moved. Then Jacob quietly said, "They know." The next morning proved even worse. One of the ranch hands arrived breathless from the south pasture. "Eli's hurt." Jacob was already moving. Abigail followed immediately. They found Eli near a broken fence line, his horse injured, his face bruised, blood dried along his forehead. "What happened?" Eli spat into the snow. 3 riders. Jacob's eyes narrowed. "Who?" "I don't know." But everyone knew. Eli looked furious. "They told me to stop asking questions." Silence. Heavy silence. The message was clear. Someone wanted them afraid. Someone wanted them quiet. Someone wanted the investigation to end. Instead, it had the opposite effect. For the first time, Jacob stopped doubting completely. This was no misunderstanding. No bookkeeping error. No family dispute. This was war. That evening, Jacob stood on the porch watching the sunset disappear behind snow-covered hills. Abigail joined him. For several minutes neither spoke. Finally, Jacob said, "I spent years believing I was broken." She looked toward him. He continued, "After the accident, I stopped fighting." The cold wind carried his words into the darkness. "I let other people make decisions." His jaw tightened. "I let Silas control everything." Abigail listened quietly. "I thought surviving was enough." Jacob looked toward the ranch, toward the workers, toward the land his family had built. I was wrong. For the first time since she met him, Abigail saw something returning to his eyes. Not happiness, not yet. Something stronger. Purpose. Then Jacob turned toward her. The distance between them suddenly felt much smaller. You stayed. Abigail frowned slightly. What? Most people leave when things become difficult. His voice softened. You didn't. The words struck her harder than expected, because nobody had ever thanked her for staying before. Not once. For several seconds neither moved, neither looked away. Then Jacob carefully reached for her hand, and she let him. Snow drifted quietly across the valley. Neither noticed, because for the first time since their marriage began, neither felt entirely alone. Unfortunately, someone else was watching. Far beyond the ranch house, far beyond the fields, a rider sat motionless atop a distant ridge, watching Black Hollow Ranch through a spyglass, watching the lights, watching Jacob, watching Abigail, then turning his horse toward town, toward Nathan Crowley, toward the man who had just decided that Abigail Mercer and Jacob Reed had become a problem that needed to disappear. The first snowstorm of January arrived like a punishment. For 3 days the wind screamed across Red Creek Valley without stopping. Snow buried fences, roads vanished. The world beyond the ranch disappeared beneath endless white. Inside the house, however, nobody was thinking about weather, because somebody had stolen the evidence. Somebody had attacked Eli. Somebody was watching the ranch, and everyone knew things were about to get worse. The only question was how much worse. Jacob didn't sleep much after that. Neither did Abigail. Every night lanterns burned later than usual. Every noise outside caused heads to turn. Every rider approaching the ranch created tension. Even the workers felt it. The entire ranch seemed to be waiting. Waiting for the next attack, waiting for the next disaster, waiting for the next move from Nathan Crowley. It came sooner than expected. 5 days later, just before dawn, Abigail woke to shouting. At first she thought she was dreaming. Then came another scream, and another, followed by the unmistakable smell of smoke. Her eyes flew open. Smoke. Real smoke. She jumped from bed. Outside the bedroom window, an orange glow illuminated the darkness. The barn. The barn was burning. Jacob! By the time she reached the hallway, Jacob was already moving. The moment he opened the front door, freezing wind and thick smoke rushed inside. Chaos exploded across the ranch. Workers ran through the snow carrying buckets. Horses screamed in terror. Flames climbed into the sky. The entire main barn was engulfed. Jacob's face turned white. There are horses inside. Without hesitation, he grabbed his coat. Abigail caught his arm. No. He looked at her. I have to. The roof could collapse. There are animals in there. His voice carried a determination she had never heard before. For one terrifying second, Abigail realized she couldn't stop him. Because he was right. Jacob pulled free, then ran directly into the fire. The next few minutes felt like hours. Abigail stood in the snow helping workers form bucket lines. The heat from the flames fought against the freezing wind. The sky glowed orange, wood cracked, glass shattered. The barn groaned like a dying animal. Still, Jacob remained inside. Every second stretched endlessly. Then suddenly a horse burst from the barn, then another, then another. Jacob emerged behind them, dragging a frightened mare through the smoke. Cheers erupted from the workers. Abigail nearly collapsed from relief. Then a deafening crack echoed across the ranch. The roof began collapsing. Everyone screamed, Jacob! For one horrible moment he disappeared behind falling timber. Abigail's heart stopped. Then through the smoke she saw him again. Running, limping, fighting through pain, alive. The moment he reached safety, she threw her arms around him. Neither cared who saw. Neither cared about appearances. The fear had stripped away every remaining wall between them. Jacob held her tightly. For several seconds neither spoke, because both understood how close they had come to losing everything. The fire burned until sunrise. When investigators finally examined the remains, their conclusion was immediate. Arson. The barn hadn't caught fire accidentally. Someone had set it deliberately. Abigail wasn't surprised. He thinks we're finished, Jacob said. Abigail stared at the ruins. No. She shook her head slowly. He thinks we're afraid. The breakthrough arrived 2 weeks later, from a source nobody expected. Silas Reed. Abigail was organizing supplies when a rider arrived unexpectedly. One of the workers entered the house. His expression looked confused. "Someone's here to see you." "Who?" The ranch hand hesitated, then answered, "Silas." The room immediately became silent. Jacob stood, slowly, dangerously. But when Silas entered, something was different. The confidence was gone, the expensive smile was gone, the polished businessman was gone. For the first time he looked frightened, genuinely frightened. Jacob's voice turned cold. "You have nerve showing up here." Silas swallowed. "I know, but get out. I'm trying to help." Nobody believed him, especially Jacob, yet Silas remained standing. Then he placed a thick leather folder on the table. The room became quiet. "What is that?" Abigail asked. Silas looked exhausted. "Everything." For the next hour the truth unfolded, and it was worse than anyone imagined. Much worse. Nathan Crowley had spent 15 years stealing ranches throughout Red Creek Valley. Not simply through business, through fraud, extortion, bribery, threats, arson, even murder. Silas had helped him, at first for money, then because he became trapped. The deeper he became involved, the harder it became to leave. Every crime led to another. Every secret created another secret. Eventually, Crowley owned evidence capable of destroying him. So Silas stayed, year after year, watching innocent families lose everything, watching ranchers disappear, watching properties change hands, watching an entire valley slowly fall under Crowley's control. Abigail turned pale while reading the documents. Hidden bank records, bribery payments, land theft, forged signatures, false contracts, everything, including evidence linking Crowley to several disappearances. The room felt colder with every page. Jacob stared at his cousin. "Why now?" Silas lowered his eyes. The answer came quietly. "Because I'm tired." Years of guilt filled those 3 words. Within days, Deputy Samuel Holt arrived, then investigators, then territorial officials. The case spread rapidly. Witnesses came forward. Former employees testified. Bank records were seized. Businesses searched. For the first time in years, Nathan Crowley began losing control, and desperate men often made dangerous choices. Crowley attempted to flee. The news arrived shortly after sunrise. A worker rode hard into the ranch yard. "He's running." Jacob was already saddling a horse. Abigail stepped forward. "Jacob." He looked at her. Both understood. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about ending it once and for all. "I'll come back." The words sounded simple, yet they carried enormous weight. Because now, they mattered. Now, there was something worth returning to. Abigail nodded, then watched him ride away. The chase ended near Red Creek Canyon. Spring meltwater had begun flooding the river below. The cliffs were slick, dangerous. Crowley pushed his horse too hard trying to escape. Witnesses later described what happened. One moment he was racing toward the bridge, the next the ground beneath him gave way. Horse and rider plunged into the raging river. Neither resurfaced. After 15 years of controlling Red Creek Valley, Nathan Crowley vanished beneath the very land he had spent years trying to own. The months that followed transformed everything. Investigations recovered stolen properties. Families regained land. Fraudulent contracts were voided. Corrupt officials lost their positions. For the first time in years, Red Creek Valley began healing, and so did Bennett Ranch. The burned barn was rebuilt, stronger than before. Workers returned. Business improved. Hope returned. Slowly, steadily, like spring after a long winter. One warm evening nearly a year later, Abigail stood on the porch watching the sunset spread across the valley. The ranch looked different now, alive. Children laughed near the corrals. Workers joked while finishing chores. The rebuilt barn glowed beneath golden light. Everything felt peaceful. For the first time since arriving, Jacob stepped onto the porch beside her. No cane. Only the faintest trace of a limp remained. Years of pain no longer defined him. For a while they watched the sunset together. Then Jacob spoke quietly. "Do you remember the day you arrived?" Abigail laughed softly. "Unfortunately, A smile touched his face. "I thought they were sending me a wife." She looked at him. "And?" Jacob turned toward her. Warm evening light reflected in his eyes. "They sent me the person who saved my life." Emotion caught unexpectedly in Abigail's throat. For a moment neither spoke. Then Jacob gently took her hand. Below them stretched Red Creek Valley, a valley that had nearly been stolen, a ranch that had nearly been destroyed, a future that had nearly never existed. And standing there beneath the fading western sky, Abigail finally understood the truth that had shocked them both. They had never been forced together by fate's cruelty. They had been brought together by it, because the broken rancher needed someone who refused to quit, and the unwanted widow needed a place where she truly belonged. At last, both had found exactly what they were searching for.